Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel, and thanks for logging on. Today, we've got a pair of sea horses for sea courses, and yes, they're Clydesdales. It's Rolex Sea Dweller versus Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean today, with 43 millimeters being the size of entry. 43.5 for the Omega, 43 for the Rolex. This is an interesting piece. Technically, the 126600. It's officially the 50th anniversary Rolex Sea Dweller, launched 5 decades after the original 1967 Submariner 2000, as it was called at the time, and actually the very first prototypes weren't even Submariner 2000s. The watch later became a Sea Dweller model line in its own right, and for the 50th anniversary, Rolex retired the Sea Dweller 40 and launched this 43mm piece in tribute. It is 43, and it's not to be mistaken for a smaller deep sea. It wears as a larger sub rather than a smaller deep sea, with the important dimension being the thickness. The deep sea is almost 18, this is 15.1, and it makes a big difference on the wrist. Lug-to-lug, the watch is large but not overbearing. 50.4 if you include just the case, and then it's 53.7 if you include the end links. What does it wear like? Well, it wears like a 44mm Panerai Luminor, and if you've ever worn comfortably a 42mm Royal Oak Offshore, rest assured this is one for your wrist. It can even fit a smaller wrist like mine. I'd recommend it for wrists as small as 15 centimeters circumference. The spacing between the lugs is 22mm, and there's a handsome congruence between the size of the end pieces and the width of the lugs. It's a good match, not the mismatch we saw in the first generation deep sea. The bracelet is a handsome piece, subdued with satin finish across its hoods. There's some polish on the flanks, and you can see individual removable links are fixed by screws. The clasp is a deluxe piece. You can always tell a deluxe Rolex model by the internal finish of the clasp. If it's matte finish, entry-level piece. If it's polish, flagship. Now there's actually a double lock. There's a beacon hook system, and you can see the switch locking into place. You lift it and unlock. Then there's a clamshell, and note the clamshell laterally as well as vertically fits flush. It's a double locking system that's shore-tight with a wonderful kerf, so you can easily dig your nail in. Internally, the clasp is not just finished, it's engineered. You could see glide lock here in conjunction with flip lock. Now, glide lock is easy. It's 20mm of adjustment in 2mm increments. This is great for sizing. There are times when you don't want to dive, but you do want to change the sizing of your watch. You can do that here. If you really need to go all out, that's where flip lock comes in. It folds out. This is a descendant of the very first Sea Dweller's equipment, which would have featured a stamped flip lock. This, fully machined, is far more redoubtable. It's a wonderful system that's great for divers as well as shoreside sizing. The case is the super case, but for once, I'm going to give the super case a shout out for its elegance. This watch uses a helium escape valve that could not be a more dramatic contrast with the somewhat, let's be honest, obtrusive appurtenance of the Seamaster Planet Ocean. This, automatic deploying and flush to the case, is elegance incarnate. The case is strong but simple. It's a super case. Because of the rather tapered profile of the lugs, they don't seem quite as squared off as you'll see on a GMT, an Explorer 2, or a Submariner. The side, however, is just as vertical and slab-sided as ever. That said, the bezel's a wonderful piece. Sharp, deep knurling, a refined click precision, 120 clicks, so you can place it right on top of the minute hand. Cerachrom insert, highly scratch resistant. All of the calibrations, numerals, and indices, platinum deposit. Now the dial's a bit different from other Rolex divers and other Rolex sports watches in that it is a matte black, designed to evoke the printed matte black base of the original Sea Dweller dial. So it's a little bit of an historical nod, but it also reduces glare. A rare occasion of a Cyclops eye on a Sea Dweller. In fact, an historic first. The magnifier was usually the domain of the Submariner, never on the Sea Dweller until this reference in 2017. Of course, you have the red Sea Dweller script at 6 o'clock, which is another nostalgic nod to the late 60s through early 70s. All white gold hands as well as white gold indices to resist tarnish and oxidation over time. Not everyone will love the Cyclops eye, but if you're going to wear it on a large watch in which it looks proportional, and we do have to acknowledge that it makes viewing the date quite easy. The crown, a trip lock, is flush to the case, 1,220 meters water resistant, or roughly 4,000 feet underneath the screwed-in case back. The new hotness at Rolex, caliber 3235, automatic winding, chronergy escapement, 70-hour power reserve, free-sprung balance with a full bridge for shock resistance, overcoil hairspring for concentric beating in all positions, helping the watch to earn its COSC chronometer certification, but also helping the watch to earn its Rolex Superlative Chronometer designation, which is protected and guaranteed by warranty. Rolex cases up the COSC certified movement, tests it in 6 positions, and regulates to keep time to +2, -2 seconds per day or better. And again, with a 5-year warranty, you can hold Rolex's feet to the fire. Stop seconds and quick set date functions both The chronogy escapement is Leica etched and can be considered Rolex's technological riposte to Omega's Co-Axial. Functionally, they achieve the same purpose: reduced maintenance and improved timing accuracy. Now, the watch is rated to a deeper depth than the Omega, but the watch also features a solid caseback, so you lose some of the fun of owning a mechanical timepiece. Rolling to the Omega, you can see that first and foremost, this is a big, bold, and refined watch, each in equal measure, whereas the Rolex tries to tone down its scale to look a little bit less like its larger deep-sea brethren. This is a watch that is loud and proud, 16.1 millimeters thick. We're going to throw it on the wrist. You can see that it has more of a squat aspect ratio to it because 16.1 millimeters thick, but in a wrist-friendly nod with pivoted end links, the watch is only 48.9 millimeters across the wrist to 53.7. That difference of almost 4 millimeters might be a make or break if your wrist is around 14.5 centimeters circumference. This is going to be the watch for you if your wrist is narrow. It is chunky and thick at 16.1, 43.5 millimeters is the size. 1 year before the Sea Dweller 50th bowed, this was the newest and to date remains the latest evolution of the Planet Oceans. The line was introduced in 2005. It received the Matos movement in 2016, as well as the 43.5 millimeter case size that had previously been the exclusive domain of the Planet Ocean GMT. The spacing between the lugs is 21 millimeters, so it does have a little bit of a narrower necked down appearance relative to the Rolex. You can see that the links are a 3-link design, but staggered alignment and all of satin finish, even on the flanks. It does distinguish itself from the Rolex design with the ovoid side profile. It's supple, it's solid, and it has big gaps on the underside for ergonomics. It doesn't pinch skin, pull hair, or trap heat. Individual removable links fixed by screws. It's a single fold system with trigger release rather than the Rolex, so you have 1 degree of confidence, 1 locking system. For most, that will be plenty. A push-button slider that gives you 9.6 millimeters of incremental adjustment to the Rolex's 20, and then you've got a similar all-or-nothing dive extension. Now, I will mention, the slider has less travel than the Rolex's 20 millimeters, and the extension doesn't have quite the same wingspan as the flip-lock system. On both an adjustment front and an absolute length front, advantage Rolex, but the Omega is very solidly made. Now jump into the case, you can see it's satin finished on its flanks, polished on its bevels. It's a familiar form. We've seen it on innumerable Speedmasters and Seamasters. One feature I will shout out, that pivoted end link to the bracelet that makes it more wearable on a small wrist. One feature I'm also going to shout out for a different reason, that Helium escape valve. You do have to manually thread it out when you want to use it, and it looks a little bit like, shall we charitably describe it as a beauty mark on the flank of the case? Unnecessary. Let's take a look at the dial. First, the bezel. It has a chunky action, not quite as refined as the Rolex, but you can place it where you want, and you can hear it distinctly as well as feel it. It's a bit more complex than the Rolex bezel, as it features a rubber insert for the first 15 minutes in the name of contrast, ceramic, and then a sort of amorphous glass-like metallic called liquid metal. It has the same molecular form as glass, and thus it is permanently bonded to the ceramic. The dial, upscale, whereas Rolex gives you a printed logo and marquee, you get a applique white gold Omega logo and marquee on the Planet Ocean. White gold hands and indices, just like the Rolex, but the fact that you get the applique logo sets this one just slightly above, as does the dial base, which is made of ceramic. It gives you most of the advantages of enamel: tarnish resistant, oxidation resistance, it will never fade, and it's also tougher than enamel. It doesn't have the cost associated with it that enamel has, and again, being ceramic, it's highly resistant to damage during servicing. The timepiece, featuring evocative, historically inspired orange tri-Arabic numerals as well as broad arrow hands, 2 different setting functions. One is a time zone feature that allows you to step the hour hand independently, and you can see how I can drive the date forward or backwards as my watch continues to keep time. That's a wonderful feature for travelers. Of course, if you pull the crown out all the way, and I will demonstrate this, you have a stop seconds function, so you can literally force time to stand still and set your watch to a reference time. Note how large the crown is, and also how sharply knurled it is. It's a dramatic contrast with the Rolex, which is perhaps a little bit too flush to the case and the crown guards for its own good. It's easier to manipulate this with wet, sweaty, or gloved hands. Turn it over. The movement, you could see, not the case back, but the caliber itself, advantage Omega. Now 600 meters water resistant versus 1220, but we're talking academics beyond 300 meters anyway. No one can dive this deep. The timepiece featuring a Purpose-built coaxial, 8900, the evolution of the 8500, features the Maytas chronometer standard. Created by Omega and the Swiss Federal Institute of Metrology, it is an objective standard. 5-position testing is the COSC chronometer, 6-position testing is Maytas. Bare movement testing is the COSC. Fully cased-up watch is Maytas. Also a test of power reserve, water resistance, and winding efficiency. The watch has a free-sprung balance with a full bridge, so it's shock-resistant like the Rolex, but it features an SI14 silicon hairspring, not an anti-magnetic hairspring, an amagnetic hairspring. So advantage Omega on that basis. Also, you saw the time zone and the stop seconds. Note the twin mainspring barrels, which even out the power reserve release from max to min. True, the Rolex has a longer power reserve at 70 versus this watch is 60, but Rolex amplitude drops off considerably after 24 hours. With the twin barrels, the Omega's precision does not, and we have the exotic coaxial system as designed by George Daniels. Tangential contact here in its tri-level iteration. It is both a precise system and a durable system that also reduces maintenance requirements. So let's talk about our champions and call out their advantages. Okay, starting with the Omega. First, a display case back. Need I elaborate? If you're into watches like this, you're into movements. This is the movement snob's choice. Value, a watch that sells for $6,550 new versus $11,350 for the Rolex. And again, capability and tech are almost identical. Moreover, the Rolex sells for $13,500 to $14,000 pre-owned, whereas this actually loses value, selling for $4,300 to $4,800. So it is the ultimate pre-owned buy, more affordable new, and the buy if you want to go used. Both watches feature a 5-year warranty, so buy recent, and theoretically all versions of both watches made since 2016 or 2017 should still be under warranty. I'm also going to give a little bit of a shout out to the narrow spacing across the wrist. These pivoted end links are the business, and if you've got that small or narrow wrist, this watch is easily going to be the one that fits better. Despite being thicker, it does fit more compact on the wrist. I'll also mention the superior dial detail endears this watch to me. Not only do you have all white gold hands, all white gold indices, but the Omega logo and the Omega name applique, the dial base out of ceramic, not some sort of printed galvanized blank. I appreciate these refinements. The Omega dial is both better detailed and materially more substantial. Let's talk about SI14, the anti-magnetic amagnetic hairspring. Let's talk about twin mainspring barrels to even out the torque release and prevent a drop of amplitude. Let's talk about the coaxial escapement. Let's talk about the Maytas chronometer standard. Let's talk about the time zone hour stepping feature. This watch succeeds on almost every front. Other than the fact that the Rolex has a 10-hour power reserve advantage, the Omega is holding just about all the cards from a technical standpoint. Now, let's talk about the crown. You're a diver. You're going to be manipulating this crown with wet, sweaty, or gloved hands. It's simply easier to grip. The knurling is sharper. The crown shoulder is shallower. The crown is larger to create more mechanical advantage when turning. The leverage factor is higher. And I'll also mention that titanium here is an option. Straps are an option. Omega gives you a new model flexibility you don't get with the Rolex, as you can spec the watch to your taste in lightweight titanium or on a strap if the bracelet is not to your liking. So flexibility and choice is a good thing. Now, jumping to the Rolex, let's talk about the advantages of the Sea Dweller 43, the 126600. This is a substantial watch in every respect, but it is a slimmer timepiece, more elegant. That difference of 1 millimeter does make a large difference vis-a-vis a cuff, and proportionally, the watch being broad at 50.4 millimeters lug-to-lug rather than 48.9 means that this watch being slimmer and broader, overall, it doesn't look slightly more elegant, it looks far more elegant, whereas the Omega seems a little bit squat on the wrist, and you can see the advantages when they go crystal to crystal. In terms of slim profile and elegance of proportion, it's all to the Rolex's credit. Let's also talk about the Rolex brand value. It's something to mention when we're discussing luxury goods. Many people do buy on that basis. Rolex is a brand name that transcends our watch niche. Folks in the Gen Pop know about it. As a result, the watch is both the easier gift to give because it's easier to give a Rolex and get a positive response. Everyone loves a Rolex, or among watch collectors, at least respects it. And it's a better store value. A watch that sells new for $11,350 and pre-owned for $13,500 to $14,000. It could even be a slight speculative endeavor if you're going to be a short-term owner. I would also mention that the superior clasp here, it succeeds on both fronts. First, you have that double locking system rather than one, and second, you have both more incremental adjustment with the 20 millimeters, and you have a more substantial flip lock, the more substantial pull-out extension. So not only do you get more travel overall, but you get more adjustability in increments, plus a more secure double locking system. Let's also talk about the advantage of the helium escape valve. Here, flush to the case and automatic activation. On the Omega, for some incomprehensible reason, the thing looks like a little bit of a tumor or the eye of a potato. I'm not a fan of that setup. I am a fan of this setup. History. 50 years, and they're commemorating the original Sea Dweller. The first Planet Ocean bowed in 2005. I don't think we'll be talking about the Planet Ocean 50 years from then. I think we'll still be recognizing this watch as a Sea Dweller, just as those first Comex divers of 1967 would have recognized this watch as the successor and descendant of their watch. This is a timepiece that defies time and planned obsolescence. It's not a flavor of the moment. I would also like to mention the fact that this watch features a superior bezel. In terms of materials, you have a ceramic insert with platinum deposits. With the Omega, you have a ceramic insert with a rubber inlay. Also, let's talk about the knurling. It's sharp and effective on the edge of the Rolex bezel. You can easily dig your fingers into it. It's a little bit slipperier and less substantial on the bezel of the Omega, tougher to grip. Let's talk about action. You can hear and feel the refinement of the Rolex. It threads the needle between a raw, chunky detent and the refinement you expect in a luxury product. It's both precise and refined, while still having enough personality and mechanical, tactile sensation to reward the owner. The Omega, it has a little bit more play in its bezel structure. It turns, but it does so without any joy. The detent isn't as crisp. You can feel it's a bit less distinct, each detent individually feeling a little bit gummier than with the Rolex. It's good, it's not great. Which one of these two would I pick for myself? Well, I'm a fan of the classics, and then though I'm normally an Omega man, I have to go with the Rolex Sea Dweller because of the elegance, the timeless qualities, the superior clasp, and the fact that I believe that Rolex has achieved something that feels more like a plus-sized Submariner rather than a downsized deep sea, whereas the Planet Ocean feels too chunky altogether. It feels like an occasional watch, not an all-the-time watch. The Rolex, by comparison, strikes me as something I could wear as my only watch. You guys let me know in the comments below which of these two horses is yours for the subterranean and submarine courses. Well, now our horses turn to jellyfish. Rolex Chromalite, Omega Planet Ocean. The Rolex is more visible as a whole, but the Omega does a better job with differential lume in exceptionally bright superluminova spec, differentiating the bezel and the minute hand. So I would say this is a tie. Rolex better overall nighttime lume, Omega better bezel and minute specific lume.